So many lords, both of great and small houses, had perished during the Dance of the Dragons that the Citadel rightly came to name this time the Winter of the Widows. Never before or since in the history of the Seven Kingdoms had so many women wielded so much power, ruling in place of their slain husbands, brothers, and fathers. For sons in swaddling cloths, so many men had died, though many women were ruling their houses in their own right. 4 such women played crucial parts in the history of the realm in late 132 AC and in early 133, whether for good or ill. Foremost of these was Lady Joanna, the widow of Casterly Rock, who ruled the domains of House Lannister for her young son, Lord Lauren. She had appealed time and time again to Aegon III's hand, her late lord husband's twin brother Tyland, for aid against the Reavers from the Iron Islands, but none had been forthcoming, with the hands focused on maintaining the fractious peace won during the Hour of the Wolf. Lady Joanna, desperate to protect her people and reputation of her house, at last donned a man's mail and mounted a horse to lead the men of Lannisport and Casterly Rock against the Ironborn raiders herself. The songs tell of how she slew dozens of Ironmen beneath the walls of Case, but those may be safely put aside as the work of drunken singers. While Lady Joanna did carry a sword, she rarely used it, instead carrying the golden lion banner of House Lannister into battle. Her courage and simple presence on the battlefield did help to inspire the Westermen. Thanks to her actions, the Ironborn raiders were soon routed and Case was saved. Amongst the dead was the Red Kraken's favourite uncle. Lady Sharys Footley, the widow of Tumbleton, achieved a different sort of fame by her efforts to restore the shattered town, ruling in the name of her infant son. Half a year after the second Tumbleton, she had given birth a lusky dark-haired boy, who she proclaimed her late lord husband's true-born heir, though it was far more likely that the boy had been sired by bold John Roxton. Lady Sharys pulled down the burned shell of the shops and houses, rebuilt the town walls, buried in numerous dead, planted wheat and barley and turnips in the fields where the camps had once been, and even had the heads of the dragons, Seasmoke and Vermithor cleaned and mounted on display in the town square, where travellers paid good coin to view them. Meanwhile, in Old Town, relations between the High Septon and Lord Ormond Hightower's young widow, Lady Sam, continued to worsen when she ignored his High Holiness's command to remove herself from her stepson's bed and take a vow as a silent sister, penance for her sins. Righteous in his wrath, the High Septon condemned the Dowager Lady of Old Town as a shameless fornicator and forbade her to set foot in the Starry Sept until she repented and sought forgiveness. Instead, Lady Samantha mounted a warhorse and burst into the Sept as the High Holiness was leading a prayer. When he demanded to know her purpose, Lady Sam replied that whilst he had forbidden her to set foot in the Sept, he had said naught about her horse's hooves. She then commanded her knights to bar the doors. If the Sept was closed to her, it would be closed to all. He quacked and thundered and called down the wrath of the gods upon this harlot on a horse. In the end, the High Septon had no choice but to relent. The fourth and last of these remarkable women emerged from the twisted and blasted towers of Harrenhal, the vast ruin beside the water of the God's Eye, and this widow in particular, would take many of the regents and the Hand by surprise, and become a thorn in the side of both. Shunned and forgotten since Aemond Targaryen and his nephew Aemond had met their final fate above the God's Eye, Black Harren's accursed seat had become the haunt for outlaws, robbers, and broken men, who sallied forth from behind its walls to prey upon travellers, fisherfolk, and farmers. A year ago, there had been but a few, but lately the number had grown to the point of a small army, enough they could even pose somewhat of a threat if well organised. But more importantly, it was being said that a sorceress ruled over them, a witch queen of fearsome power. When these tales did finally reach King's Landing, Sir Tyler Lannister decided it was time to reclaim the castle. This task he entrusted to a knight of the Kingsguard, Sir Regis Grove, who was sent out from the city with 100 seasoned men. At Castle Darry he was joined by Sir Damon Darry with a like number. Rashly, Sir Regis assumed this would be more than a sufficient number to deal with a few squatters and cutthroats. Arriving before the walls of Harrenhal, he found the gates closed and hundreds of well-equipped, armed men on the battlements. This would be no quick affair. There were at least 600 souls within the castle, a third of them men of fighting age, more than enough to put up a strong defence in a siege. When Sir Regis demanded to speak with their lord, a woman emerged to treat with him, with a child beside her. The Witch Queen of Harrenhal proved to be none other than Alys Rivers, the base-born wet nurse who had been the prisoner and then paramour of Prince Aemond Targaryen. She now claimed to be his widow. The boy was Aemond's, she told the knight. His bastard, said Sir Regis, his true-born son and heir, Alys Rivers spat back, and the rightful king of Westeros. She commanded the knight to kneel before your king and swear him your sword, but Sir Regis laughed at this, saying, I do not kneel to bastards, much less the base-born whelps of a kinslayer and a milk cow. What happens next remains a matter of some dispute. Some say that Alys Rivers merely raised a hand, and Sir Regis began to scream and clutch his head until his skull burst apart, spraying blood and brains. But others insist the widow's gesture was a signal, at which a crossbowman on the battlements let fly a bolt that took Sir Regis through the eye. Whatever the case is, Sir Regis Grove was dead in an instant. Half a heartbeat later, the gates of Harrenhal burst open, and a swarm of howling riders charged forth. A bloody fight ensued. The king's men were put to rout. Sir Aemond Targaryen, being well horsed, well armoured, and well trained, was one of the few to actually escape. The Witch Queen's minions hunted him through all the night before abandoning the chase. Some 32 men lived to return to Castle Darry, of the 100 that had set out. The next day, a 33rd made his appearance, having been captured with a dozen others. He'd been forced to watch them die by torture one by one before turning loose to deliver a warning. I'm telling you what she said, he gasped, but you can't laugh. The widow put a curse on me. Any man of you who laughs, I'll die. When Sir Daemon assured him that no one was going to laugh at him, the messenger said, Don't come again, unless you mean to bend your knee, she says. Any man who comes near her walls will die. There's a power in them stones, and the widow's woken it. 7 save us. She has a dragon. I've seen it. The name of the messenger is lost to us, along with the name of the man who laughed, but someone did. One of Lord Darry's men. The messenger looked at him, stricken, then clutched his throat and began to wheeze. Unable to draw breath, he was dead in a moment. Supposedly, the imprints of a woman's fingers could be seen upon his skin, as if he'd been strangled, as if she had been in the room, choking him.